Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 70 of the Hardly Millennial podcast, where we are young, dumb, and full of
opinions.
We have your OGs back today. My name is Adam.
Matthew Lynn. How's it going, guys?
And guys, today, there was an event that happened today that stirred the conversation I wanted to have, the little discussion I wanted to have. And that is, it was the result of a superstition that I have in regards to full moons.
Oh,
and
interesting.
Today is a full moon. And I'm proven, my little superstition is proven right every time on full moons. And I think full moons are on a certain level of evil. Every single time
you might not be wrong.
Every single time there is a full moon, it's definitely on a spectrum. Like it's either just an off day for everybody, or like such an off day for everybody where like it's that day everyone has a story, right? Like, oh, I was driving to work and I got a flat tire, and then I had to call this, but they weren't
wrong
available.
Side of the bed kind of days.
Exactly. And I'm sorry, but I believe it. I believe that is what happened. I feel like full moons are just funky days.
And I mean, I agree because we've seen it so many times,
Yes.
right? But like in reality, how could that possibly be?
Right.
All it is the amount of light coming off of the moon, right?
Right. Well, the spiritual argument with it is that because your body is made up of like 70% water, and we know that the moon's gravitational pull has an effect on the water on Earth, it's supposed to be like it does have an effect on us in some metaphysical kind of way, right?
I see.
And then just to be clear, guys, this isn't like something I always believed, and then because of that belief, I just, saw all these full moon days as that day. Like, this used to be never a thought in my mind. It was just, it was like one day I just remember having a really bad day, and I just, one of those moments that stuck in my head, I remember going outside for a cigarette and seeing there was a full moon, right? Didn't think anything of it at the time. I just remember that happened on that bad day.
Right.
And then it was just, and then maybe every like month after that, I didn't really pay attention. But then there would just be other days I had down the line where it'd be a really bad day, or just a very weird day. Maybe you get a lot of weird customers that come in, or a weird
strange
situation
event that happens.
Yeah. And I look up that night and there's the fucking full moon.
Like, hey.
And so
here
after
I am,
this,
Adam.
yeah, exactly. So then after this happening, like, sporadically, I started paying attention to it, to where, like, if it was a full moon, I'd kind of, tiptoe through the day a little bit, but there was always a consistency with it.
Just call out if there's a full moon. Just I can't go to work.
Yeah, right. I have literally considered, like, every
How
month
funny.
putting in a request, just saying, like, whatever day the full moon is, like, sorry, personal reasons,
yeah,
can't do it.
I'm sick that day.
I'm a werewolf, my bad. And but no, dude, like, today was no different. There was no like weird situation that happened today, or it's not like people were in bad moods per se, but everybody just seemed to be super fucking tired today, like lethargic today.
Just low energy.
Yeah, well, and you got that comment every time people came into the coffee shop, where, people just, every person that came in today is just like, oh, I'm just so tired. I just can't seem to wake up today. And that's what's always weird. It's like, no matter what happens on the full moon, it's like everybody's on the same fucking
It happens
page.
to everyone.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Exactly.
It's like,
so, I mean, as far as superstitions that I believe, like, that, it's just one of those weird things. I can't shake it. I believe it. I tiptoe around days that are full moons because of it.
dude, I think that space is so huge and vast. Mm-hmm. Like, the things going on in space are so big that they probably do affect here on Earth.
I feel like they have to, right?
Well, there was a few weeks back where the house was just kind of like in a weird funk. Mm-hmm. And like, even two separate roommates like said something about it. They were like, it's weird. And then another day later, someone else was like, it's just feeling weird this week. And it was all totally separate from each other. And then I'm looking up on, Facebook or whatever, and I see that apparently Mars or
Mercury was
Mercury
in retrograde.
Mercury was in retrograde. Yes. Now, it could be a total coincidence, you know, but it does seem that when space does out of the ordinary things, you know, it kind of like makes weird stuff happen on Earth.
Well, the funny thing about these things, like full moon or retrograde Mercury, is these aren't even like weird things, because like, you know, full moon are like out of the ordinary things, right?
Well,
I
like
mean,
they
full
only
moons-
happen once, like the full moon's once a month.
Oh,
and
I
then
see what you
retrograde
mean,
only happens
just-
once every like so many.
Well, this year it happened. Well, it happens like twice a year.
Twice a year.
Yeah.
Okay, there you
but
go.
like this year it happens 3 times. But it's, yeah, dude, I agree with you. I remember that funk also, you know, and that was also went beyond, you know, the home life too, that went to work and
Yeah,
everything.
it was just
also.
a weird like week.
And it was funny. That was a perfect example of like me not even paying attention to the astrology stuff about it. I remember it was like, because I believe the retrograde lasted like 15 days or something. It was like half a month. And it was like March like 15th through the 26th or something like that.
Right.
And I remember I was at work and somebody came into work, and I remember having this conversation with them of just like, I don't know what it is. Just the past couple weeks have just been just like funky at the house, funky, like getting a lot of like
just
bitchy
off
customers.
is the best way to explain it.
Yeah. And this girl brought up to me and she goes, "Oh, well, Mercury's in retrograde." And then she told me the dates, and I was like, I mean,
It lines up perfectly.
It lines up perfectly, exactly.
Right.
And then what happened after Mercury was out of retrograde? Everything just kind of
Just so happens.
back to where it was.
I don't know. Like, I don't really believe in coincidence a whole lot. Mm-hmm. But I guess you could definitely make an argument that it's just a coincidence.
Yeah.
But it does seem like the pulls of things in space pull on us and affect what's going on here.
Well, and then on top of that, it's so if those things affect us, then the argument comes up of is astrology a, you know, legit thing? People who think that their personalities for their zodiac signs.
I think it
you
is.
know, I do
Personally,
too, to an
I do.
extent. Yeah.
I don't believe in like, you know, worshiping it or like anything like that.
And I don't think,
but
and I think very rarely people do. But
yeah, but no, definitely, dude. I think that people act different based on when they're born, for sure.
yeah, I do too. It's
You
one
can
of those.
call it sometimes. You can
Yeah.
be like, "Oh, you're a Libra, aren't you?" And they'll be like,
Yeah,
"Yeah,
that's-
how'd you know?"
that's
Well,
true.
Because you watch out for Libras. Like,
Well, and it's so funny too, because I've done, as far as the zodiac stuff goes, because you can like go onto their sites now and everything that will like map out your whole birth chart, right?
oh, right.
So and
Yeah, it can get pretty in depth if you want it to.
yeah, well, because the whole thing is it's not only just where like the Earth is in regards to like your zodiac sign, which acts as your sun sign, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the one that everybody goes for, but it also is dependent on like where was Mars, you know, what astrology was.
Oh, it's the whole chart. That's what they mean by chart.
Exactly. Was Mars in? Where was Venus at the time? Because Earth may have been, you may be like a Leo because of where Earth was when you were born.
Right.
But Venus might have been in Scorpio. So that affects this part of your personality.
Oh,
Jupiter was in
interesting.
Sagittarius. So that affects this part of your personality.
Yeah, I bet if you look into it, you would see things match up, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like I don't obviously believe in fortunes, like fortune cookies.
Right.
You know what I mean? Those are clearly bullshit. They're just
Yeah.
fun things to read when you've done eating a cookie.
Right.
I don't like compare zodiac signs to a fortune cookie.
Right.
I think that obviously if you want to find something in anything, you're going to find it.
Right.
So like reading your zodiac or whatever, you're going to obviously be like, "Oh yeah, that's me," because you're reading it. But I think that if you read a sign that's not you, you'll be like, "No, that doesn't explain me." Like it's not just a coincidence like that.
Well, and I think the key also, and why a lot of people think it is bullshit, is because it's very like I would always tell people that if you want to know about your zodiac sign, get the information from like a physical book. Because
Yeah.
more than likely, the person that sat down and wrote out this book that goes through all the different signs and what it means and how it does, they probably are somebody, you know, who's done their own extensive research into this particular art.
Yes.
You know, rather than going to horoscope.com and saying, what's a Leo like? What's a Libra like? Because those are probably ones that if you read a sign that's not yours, you'd probably still be able to match it.
Yeah, they all kind of just, because there is an art to making something work for everybody.
Yes.
You know, you can write something in a way to that everyone thinks that it's about them.
Right.
You know, so I think some sites are doing that, but there's an actual like ancient
like technique,
like
and
form
stuff.
that comes with it. Yeah, I think it goes into the same realm of like energies, like spirit energy and chakras and all that kind of. I believe in all that. I think all that's true. I think
too.
you can not know anything about it and not study any kind of energy stuff at all in your whole life, and you'll be
Right.
fine. Because I think a lot of it's like inherent. You're born with a lot of what you need to survive. But I think if you do take the time to study some of the spiritual energies and chakras and stuff, that you can really be in better control of your life and the situation that you're in.
Yes.
You can learn to kind of not manipulate it, but use it like a muscle.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think one of the, as far going back to like the astrology thing, but using that kind of same system you're talking about, you know, if you go and you read one of these legit books and you see something like, even if it doesn't pertain to you, you know, even
Right.
if you read it and say it's complete bullshit, I do still feel there's validity there. Because if you're, you know, a Scorpio, right? And
I just so happen to be.
so, oh, are you really?
I actually
okay,
am,
cool. So, well, in
people are.
Scorpios in I know in astrology, like one of the things about is like stubbornness, right? Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's one of the
Yeah.
traits, right?
We're commonly referred to as stubborn, but more kind of keep to yourself backstabby.
Yeah,
We're usually considered to be kind of dicks.
yeah,
Kind of.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
if you go into a lot of these like zodiac books, they'll say like, oh, here's good traits and here's bad traits for all of the signs. You know, so I think anybody can go to these readings and see like, oh, what are the negative traits? And even if they pertain to you or not, just say, you know, it's always things that people can get better on. You
For
know,
sure.
so you look at those and you're like, oh, well, if I'm more prone to being those, I'm going to try extra hard to not be those.
You can use it as a tool. Yeah, it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be silly. It's whatever you make it.
Yeah,
You know.
I agree.
Oh, so I actually I have a theory of why there's so many Scorpios. Because you ask a lot of people, and most of the time you get Scorpio.
Yeah,
Believe it or not.
that's true. I've got a lot of Scorpios.
Well, think about it, man. What's 9 months before November?
I don't know. You're asking me to math right now. What's 9 months before November, Matthew?
9 months before November is February.
Oh, so
Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
We're all Valentine's Day babies. It's all the love making happening,
That
man.
makes sense.
And then they
There's-
all pop out in November.
It's funny. Scorpios and Leos are ones that I meet a lot.
Yeah, my mom's a Leo.
And my mom's a Leo too. And I'm a Leo. And my dad's a Scorpio.
What? See? The world's full of us.
Yeah, well, and then what's 9 months
How
before
funny.
August? That's December, right? So you got Christmas.
Christmas babies.
Yeah.
See that? It's all the love making
It's
happening,
all the
folks.
love making, man. But yeah, dude. No, I do enjoy astrology, even if I don't believe in some of it. I do definitely enjoy reading about it.
So would you consider astrology then, like, is that a superstition?
I think it can be. Like for example, I think there are people out there that we all have people we're other zodiac signs we're most compatible with, right?
I definitely believe that.
So
Yes,
I think there are
do.
people who will literally have a superstition so much on that to where even if they meet somebody that maybe they get really along with and think that they, could see themselves in a relationship, and then they find out that they're not compatible zodiac sign wise, I think they'll leave them by the wayside.
Like so they kind of perpetuate it.
Yeah, I think so. I do think there are people out there who go that far with it.
I see. So if you really, when it becomes almost like obsession, like when it takes out when you put too
Yes.
much
When
belief
you live
in
your
it,
life by it,
then
you
it can be
know?
a superstition.
Yes.
So that's interesting. What makes something a superstition rather than just a silly, like
I
a
think
different than a belief?
well, I think, well,
Just when you let it affect you?
yeah,
Because
I
superstitions
think,
are all negative, right?
yeah, I would say so. Or they're at least met with negative like expectations, you know. So for example,
Yeah.
full moon, right? I do think that there's something funky with full moon. So what does it make me do? It makes me feel like I have to walk on my tiptoes every, once a month when a full moon occurs. So that affects my life and it possibly could affect people around me in a negative way, right?
So until it's like scientifically proven that the gravity affects us
Then
from a
I
full moon,
think it's
it's a superstition.
superstition.
But as
Yeah.
soon as it's like confirmed by science, then it's no longer a superstition. Then it's just fact,
Yes.
right?
I would say so. Yes.
Like if they figured out that if you stepped on a crack, your
And you
mom's
broke-
back
yeah.
actually broke.
Then it's no longer superstition.
That's not a
That's just
superstition.
something
That's
you
just
don't do.
truth.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it's putting the belief in something
Mm-hmm.
that is not true.
Something that's not tangible or can't even be tested to be tangible. So
Right.
I know there's a lot of sports people that will do
Yep.
things like, oh, every time the Rams play, I have to wear a blue shirt because I wore a blue shirt that one time they won back in
So that's like lucky,
1982.
like lucky socks.
Yeah.
Like
luck
so
is
that would be
big
a superstition, right?
Yes.
But see, again, it's a fine line. Superstitions are kind of fun, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now that I'm putting some thought into it, because all they are is normal thoughts and beliefs, but you just let them control your life,
Mm-hmm. Well,
and
it's-
then they become a superstition.
Well, and there are just some that are just more accepted than others. A lot of religion is based off of superstition, really, at its core level. Especially in like the Catholic religion. You do something wrong, you're gonna go
There's
to
a
hell.
lot of ritual kind of stuff
Yeah,
too.
exactly. So, but it's just more of what's accepted or not. Whereas like even the full moon thing is, I think something that's a little more accepted. I think there's a good percentage of people out there who have that spiritual belief to where it's like, oh, you're just one of those people.
So maybe see now we're coming to something here. Maybe that's more what it is. Maybe it's that a superstition is a silly or non-consequential belief that's been believed by a lot of people throughout time.
Right.
So it's not
yeah.
like Adam or Matthew made up a silly thing that they do. Mm-hmm. That it's like people for the past couple hundred years have thought that looking at or breaking a mirror is bad luck.
Right.
So that process of it living throughout the years turns it into a superstition.
Yes, and it just based off of the more people that practice it too. But I think,
Yeah,
but I think we
yeah.
all have weird superstitions also. Like one when I was growing up that was very prominent with me was I walked to and from school a lot, so a lot of sidewalks.
Okay.
And as anybody who's seen a sidewalk knows, it's split up into like squares, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, I always had to take 2 steps in each square and not step on any of the cracks.
See, that sounds like OCD to me.
It was just well, maybe it is. I mean, isn't OCD kind of an advanced form of superstition?
It's a fucking fine line, bro.
Yeah.
Because were you worried that there was going to be a repercussion if you didn't take 2
Yes.
steps? Okay, so that's a
So,
superstition.
but I would argue that people with OCD feel the same way. I have to do this 13 times exactly, otherwise, because the repercussion is it puts you in a funk. It makes you feel
Makes you
bad.
panic.
Makes you panic. Makes you anxious. And that was kind of
Dude,
always
that's
the same
I don't
thing.
know. That's a fine line, I guess.
I guess it just depends where on the spectrum it falls. If a superstition takes over your life to the point of, like it is your life, well, then you call that obsessive compulsive disorder at that point.
If you have to turn a doorknob both ways before you open the door,
Uh-huh.
that's not a superstition. That's being compulsive.
But I would argue it started with the superstition.
That's interesting. We should have actually looked up the definition of superstition.
I have
before
my
we started
phone. I
this.
can just do
look.
it right
Yeah,
now.
look up the
Yeah.
definition because there's got to be like a key thing that turns it into that word.
Superstition.
I bet it's like the common belief of something.
Excessively credulous belief in and reverence for supernatural beings, or a widely held but unjustified belief in supernatural causation leading to certain consequences of an action or event, or a practice based on such a belief. So yeah, I would argue that OCD is just advanced superstition.
Well, here's the distinguishing factor is they said the word twice. It's supernatural. So you're worried that there's a supernatural consequence to what you're doing.
Okay, so in the case
That
of
turns it
OCD, it would be if it puts you in a funk, well, that's something
That's
involves
OCD,
you. But if
yes.
you felt like, oh, the house is going to fall over if I don't do this 3 times.
Because of something out of your power.
Right.
There will be an earthquake or it'll immaculately get blown over.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
It has to be, what was the word that they used?
They says, supernatural.
Supernatural. It has to be supernatural. So having to do with
Supernatural
spirits,
causation.
ghosts, gods,
Yeah.
something like that. That's the difference.
Okay, interesting.
So step on a crack, break your mother's back.
There's an outside consequence.
Well, and a supernatural force, something
Yes.
that doesn't exist, an intangible object, is going to break your mom's back. That's
Okay.
what's going on. Okay.
Okay, so
So I would say that needing to take 2 steps in each one,
it was definitely more of an OCD.
it was a compulsion.
thing.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But there is a now all the words are getting mixed up here. There's a
Supernatural?
no. The whole topic of today.
Oh, superstition.
There's a superstition. There's so many super words going on here. Holy shit. There's a superstition that is if you step on a crack, it'll fuck your mama up.
Right.
There's a lot of other ones too. There's I know one that I follow to this day is the white lighter superstition.
That's right. We were talking about that the other night.
I don't know if it's widely known, but amongst smokers, it's very widely known that if you use a white lighter, it is bad luck.
Yes.
And you might be saying, Matthew, they're all white lighters. They just have plastic casings around them. And you're right, they are, but it's not considered a white lighter until you take the plastic off.
Yes.
Then it's a white lighter.
True. The general consensus has to be this is
how
a
it
white
goes.
lighter.
Yes.
I've definitely heard that one before, though.
I won't use a white lighter, bro.
I know.
won't.
Did
I
you
had
say-
a day.
I was gonna say you told me you had a day, right?
I
Where
had
you
a
used
day
one.
in high school. I specifically remember the day. It was just one of those weird, fucked up days. And it peaked out. Like the peak of the day was me and some friends. I'm from the Southwest, where there's a lot of desert. So what the cool thing to do after school is you go out to the dunes instead of go out to the desert. So we were out there and smoking cigarettes, being cool, and they ended up telling me, they're like, oh man, the white lighter, that's why you're having a bad day. And I just threw it out into the desert, and placebo effect, I don't know what it was, but
Just
immediately my day just switched.
Interesting.
On the spot, Adam. And I was like, okay. I noticed it so dramatically. I was like, I will never use a white, and I have not to this day.
And that's what instills my superstitions in me, is just as you said, like you threw the white lighter and it was gone. It was gone, right? Yeah. And I feel the same way with like full moons. Like the day after a full moon, it's like, okay, back to normal. Day before a full moon, you can maybe kind of start feeling the funk settling in, but it's not that day.
It's one of those things, like, even if you are totally wrong, it doesn't hurt to just be careful.
Yes,
you know what I mean? It doesn't hurt to just follow it.
Exactly. Well, and that was the exact point I was making on like the zodiac signs. It's like it doesn't hurt to like
even if it's total bullshit.
Yeah.
There's a chance it's right.
Exactly. But there's a lot of weird. There's another weird one that my brother actually got me into, and now I just can't stop it. Maybe it's just become a compulsion at this point, but we used to have this thing where my brother used to tell me, he goes, it's bad luck when you drive over train tracks with your feet on the floor. So it was every time we drove over railroad tracks.
That's a funny one.
We just would say feet up, and we would just lift up our feet as we went over it, and then put them back down. And now anytime I go over a railroad track, I always put my feet up as I drive over them. Yeah, I just do. It's just habit now.
It's funny how they just kind of come into being throughout time.
Yeah.
Where, like,
Just
Your brother
one
could have
person
been the
had to
first
say
one
it.
to ever say that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he
That
just
will
made that
last for
shit up.
100 years.
And now it's a superstition.
Now it's out there.
There's definitely some common ones though. Walking under ladders, you're not supposed to do that.
Yes. Although, aren't there a few where it's like you can do them, but you just can't do them on like Friday the 13th or something?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Because I thought things like walking under the ladder or like opening an umbrella inside is another one, right? Or knocking over salt.
Why is Friday the 13th a bad luck day?
Because it only happens once a year.
Really?
The 13th of a month only lands on a Friday, like once a year. I think a few years ago it actually happened twice, and it was like a big deal. Like it wasn't going to do that again for another 70 years or something.
No shit.
Yeah. So that's why Friday the 13th is a big deal, because 13th only lands once on Friday.
No. Why would something so beautiful and rare become bad? Why would they be like, that's bad luck day?
I don't know.
There had to have been something that happened on Friday the 13th.
What I think it might actually be is I think it's because the number 13 is known as an unlucky number. Whatever the origin of that is, I don't know. But I think it started as that. So, like, if it was Friday 14th all the time, then it would be something totally different, right?
Let's look it up. I want to know.
Yeah, I'm curious too.
I have a hinkling. I don't know what the fuck word that was. I have a suspicion that something must have happened on Friday the 13th. Like something famous having to do with like witches or something like that.
All right, I typed in origin of Friday the 13th superstition. Let's see.
Oh, that's very specific. We're consulting Google today, guys.
We are consulting.
We don't usually do this.
What started that one doesn't answer my question.
There's not just like a pre-made paragraph at the top of Google?
There is, but it has nothing to do with it. It goes, in the novel, an unscrupulous broker, like it's talking about a book, like a novel called
maybe
Friday
that's
the
what
13th.
it is. Maybe someone wrote a book about it.
Well, it says, in the novel, an unscrupulous broker takes advantage of the superstition to create a Wall Street panic on a Friday the 13th. So it's about the superstition that already exists. But I'm trying to find history. Here we go.
Yeah, that's what we want.
The fear of 13. Just like walking under a ladder, crossing paths with a black cat, or breaking a mirror, many people hold fast to the belief that Friday the 13th brings bad luck. Though it's uncertain exactly when this particular tradition began, negative superstitions have swirled around the number 13 for centuries. So it sounds like
they don't know.
So it sounds like they don't know, but it sounds like the reason why Friday the 13th specifically is just because it's associated with the number 13. And it just happens to happen only once a year.
That's interesting.
So
the most interesting part to me of all that is that Google doesn't actually know.
Yeah, that is true.
Because it's very rare that Google doesn't actually know.
Well, just as you said, my brother might be the first one who said the thing about the train tracks, and now people will do that,
So
forever.
literally someone along the way was like, oh man, Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Watch the fuck out.
Or maybe they just had a bad day and they told the story, and then people were like, well, God, that does sound really bad.
There's books about it.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it sounds like the reason why... Here we go. Why is Friday the 13th unlucky? According to biblical tradition, 13 guests attended the Last Supper held on Maundy Thursday, including Jesus and his 12 apostles, one of whom, Judas, betrayed him. The next day, of course, was Good Friday, the day of Jesus' crucifixion. The seating arrangement at the Last Supper is believed to have given rise to a long-standing Christian superstition that have 13 guests at a table was a bad omen, specifically that it was courting death. Though Friday's negative associations are weaker, some have suggested they also have roots in Christian tradition. Just as Jesus was crucified on a Friday, Friday was also said to be the day Eve gave Adam the fateful apple from the tree of knowledge, as well as the day Cain killed his brother Abel. So with the combination of Friday and 13 together...
That sounds like some fucking National Treasure bullshit.
It does,
what the fuck was that? That was like the ultimate conspiracy theory fucking... that dude did some research. Well, how the fuck do they know what day of the week Cain killed Abel?
This is from the History Channel's website. They have, they just, that's what they say.
What?
I mean, maybe it is conspiracy, though. Maybe that's where it comes from. It's just the conspiracy itself, right?
As you were reading that, I was just thinking like National Treasure. Like he's going to find a map inside of a brick in the fucking museum wall, and it's going to take him to Colombia where he's going to go.
Oh, here's what you were asking earlier. What bad things happened on Friday the 13th?
Oh.
On Friday, October 13th, 1307, officers of King Philip IV of France arrested hundreds of the Knights Templar, a powerful religious and military order formed in the 12th century
that's a
for
big
the
deal.
defense of the Holy Land.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see another one. In more recent times, a number of traumatic events have occurred on Friday the 13th, including the German bombing of Buckingham Palace, September of 1940, the murder of Kitty Genovese in Queens, New York in 1964, a cyclone that killed more than 300,000 people in Bangladesh in November of 1970, the disappearance of a Chilean Air Force plane in the Andes, October 1972, the death of rapper Tupac Shakur.
Happened on Friday the 13th?
I guess so, September 96. And the crash of the Costa Concordia cruise ship off the coast of Italy, which killed 30 people in 2012.
So every one of those things are things that could just happen any day.
Yes, but they happen on Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, there we go. It looks like just
I would be willing to bet that it got
combination
real
of
popular. Like Friday the 13th being a bad luck day, that whole, like what we know it today. I would be willing to bet that got big during the Knights Templar thing.
Yeah, that
was
would make
probably the
sense.
day that made it like everyone says, "Oh,
Well,
it's a bad luck."
it sounds like the whole thing of 13 being unlucky has all originated from biblical belief anyway. So if there was already this superstition about that number, and then all of a sudden this thing with the Knights Templar happened on a Friday the 13th, all it took was a religious scholar at the, or whatever the equivalent of that would be in 1307, would come forth and say like, well, just so happens, Eve ate, gave Adam the apple on a Friday. This happened on a Friday.
People will find
and now
anything
this
that
has
they
happened.
look for.
Yeah, exactly.
But the Knights Templar, them getting rounded up and arrested during their time, that was enough to, it actually changed the shaping of Europe for the rest of history. Like they were, for their time, they were an international organization. They were as wealthy as the Catholic Church was.
Right.
So you're talking about 200 or more of the most influential people in Europe for the day got rounded up and basically killed.
Yeah, well, and
that would be a huge deal during that time.
Right. Well, and that's what I mean. So you have something like that just, you said, is a huge deal at the time.
So it just lives through history.
And then, so then you have that religious scholar who's like, well, it happened on a 13th, and then here's why Friday's bad too.
Here's why Friday's bad too. Friday's our favorite day.
Friday is.
Just not the 13th.
But yeah, it's interesting. I know there are some hotels that won't even put a 13th floor in like their hotel. It'll literally jump from it'll just be missing. So like you go to the elevator and it will go like 1 through 12 and then 14.
Is that a thing for all hotels?
No, not all hotels.
Is it a pretty common practice though? Because I feel like there's a thing where all hotels miss a floor. They don't have a certain floor.
I feel like, and I could be wrong on this, but I think that practice is more prominent in Asian countries. So I think Japan does that. I think South Korea does that also. I want to say China is really known for doing it. Yeah, not doing a 13th floor in like hotels and buildings and stuff.
Maybe I'm thinking of like the last floor isn't an option to go to, or they skip the first floor or something.
Well, I think you're right in some hotels because usually like the bottom floor is I've been in hotels where it's lobby and then it starts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, but one is really the second.
One is really second.
Yeah, but like I've seen that before, but
something like that.
But
I don't know what I'm mixing
up, personally have never been in a building that didn't have a 13th floor.
What's interesting, talking about superstitions and kind of spooky stuff and then hotels. So I heard a ghost story when I was a kid of this hotel in San Diego that was haunted. And we had some family friends who went to this hotel and had a supernatural experience that they came back and told us about.
Ooh.
And I remember as a kid, dude, I got like terrified to the point where like I couldn't sleep. You know what I mean? I was just totally taken back, terrified. And it got so bad after a few days that my mom literally had to be like, okay, look, you've never even been to this hotel. You're never going to go to this hotel. It's hundreds of miles away from us.
Right.
Get the fuck over it. There's no ghosts here. Is basically what she had to tell me. Like, it started out with being nice for a few days and trying to lay with me. And then finally she was like, dude, he's in another city. He's in another state.
Right.
Like, even if it is haunted, get over it.
Right.
I don't know. For some reason, I was like, oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's not
sometimes
my house
you
is
just need
haunted.
that, sometimes you just need that slap in the face.
Yeah,
of
there was like a ghost
like,
1,000 miles away. I was like,
Yeah.
oh no, I'm terrified.
Oh, we were talking about this the other day, but it's very comical when you think back to the things that scared you when you were younger.
Oh yeah,
right?
for sure.
We were talking the other day. For me, it was the Chucky doll from Child's Play.
Yeah, you were saying that.
I don't know what it was specifically from like Bride of Chucky. So he has all the like little scratches and stuff on his face and like carves.
Right.
But yeah, I remember when I was. I don't know
Those
how old I
movies are
was.
so like cutesy to me almost. They're not even scary movies.
Well, now at least, sure.
True,
But I
I
mean,
guess as a
like,
kid they were.
and to be fair, when I was younger, I didn't actually see the movie. What ended up happening was I was really into the movie Tremors at the time, right?
With the worms?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Worms.
That movie was
And then
great.
they made a second one, and they made a
Guys,
third
if you
one.
haven't seen Tremors, go watch it right now.
Yeah.
It's fucking amazing.
Turn this off, watch it, come back. We'll wait. But I was really into those movies. And I remember at one point, Tremors 2 was on TV and I was watching it. And they kept having commercials for the movie Bride of Chucky because they were it was the first time that movie was going to be on like TV.
You just aged yourself a little bit, bro.
Oh God, did I?
Yeah, they had commercils for the
Bride of
showing
Chucky.
of Bride of Chucky.
Yes.
Yeah, you're fucking old.
Oh God. But the commercial played every single time there was a commercial. And I remember the first time I saw it, I was almost like in shock. I was like, what the fuck was that?
Who would think of this?
Well, because I was always under the impression as a child at this point, too, that they wouldn't let things not for children come through on just like regular TV like that,
right.
So I see this fucking commercial and then I see this creepy doll, and I already had an issue with dolls and like Muppets and shit at this point. And there's this clip of him with a giant fucking knife, and he's like running towards somebody
that's
with
what he
all
does.
this blood gushing out his face.
That's literally
and shit.
every movie.
Yes. And it just traumatized me.
Oh no.
And every single time there was a commercial, it came on, and it traumatized me more. And then before you knew it, dude, like I was so scared of Chucky. I remember I had nightmares about him. Spencer started fucking selling Chucky dolls.
Oh yeah, he was big.
And I couldn't even go to Spencer's, dude.
You're like, fuck them all.
If I saw him out, I was like, yeah, exactly. I was like,
I don't want to go to the mall.
Fuck them all. Yeah, dude, Chucky. But like now,
That's
of course,
funny.
I think back and I'm just like,
he's so
how
goofy.
fucking comical. Yeah,
So
exactly.
goofy. You know what got me as a kid? I'll age myself too, I guess. Is the when I was growing up, it was very popular to watch the X-Files.
Ooh, yes.
They had just kind of become big, and back in those days, there was no like direct TV.
Right.
There was like 12 channels, and one of the channels on Sunday nights would show a new episode of The Simpsons that was an hour long.
Yep.
And it was between 7 o'clock at night and 8 o'clock at night.
Uh-huh.
I remember because 8 o'clock at night was my bedtime. So I'd have to watch the episode. It was the last thing I did to finish my week. And as soon as the last like sentence came out of Homer's mouth or whatever, and the credits came up, I had to run, go brush my teeth, and get in bed as quick as I could. And my parents had to turn the TV down so that I didn't hear the music from the intro of the X-Files. The the do 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 do. Yeah. So that music, even to this day, I am in my mid-20s. I cannot listen to that music without being like legitimately shooken.
Really?
Like, yes, I hate it. Love the show. I went back and actually watched the show later on as an adult. Fantastic show. Sped through all of the intros. I can't listen to the music, bro.
Interesting.
It's like you and Chucky. It just when you're a kid and you're a sponge like that, and you're like absorbing and becoming the human being you're going to be for the rest of your life, shit gets ingrained in you. And even if it's silly to everyone else, like it matters to your core. Right. It's just ingrained in who you are. Yeah, you know what I mean.
It is weird.
We all have weird shit like that.
Yeah, because when I think about it, it's like I am the same with Chucky. I remember I ended up watching. They came out with another Chucky movie after Bride, which was called like Seed of Chucky or some shit like that.
Yeah,
and I remember that was on TV once, and I watched it, and I was able to watch it, but I do remember just feeling super uncomfortable the entire time, just because. It's
and like I can sit through the music as an adult.
Yeah,
if you tell me
but
you
it would
must
just make
do
you
it,
feel uncomfortable.
I would be so uncomfortable.
Exactly.
I would literally be like shooken for the rest of the day. I would be timid. I would feel weird.
You know what movie really scared me when I was younger, and I have kind of meant to go back and watch this as an adult,
to like face your fear.
Yeah, a little bit, or at least be able to appreciate it as an adult. Was a movie I saw when I was younger that I should not have seen, was The Ring. And that movie,
The Ring. So I've heard that The Ring, that's part of The Shining, right?
No. The Ring was a movie. That's the girl that comes out of the well that has the black hair in front of her. It's not part of The Shining.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
okay.
Something totally different.
So I've heard The Ring is pretty terrifying. I don't watch scary movies, so
yes,
I've never seen it.
The first Ring movie, because I think they've made a few sequels since, but the first Ring movie truly was even though I've only seen it once, and it was when I was 10 years old or 10 or 11 years old. I still think back to it and thinking that was a really good horror movie because there was no blood and gore in it.
Yeah, I've heard it's super terrifying.
Yes.
Of the scary movies, it's one of the heavier hitters.
And it's definitely and so at this point I was really into, even as just this young kid, I was really into suspenseful movies, right? Not horror movies, but I did enjoy suspense movies. And somebody had mentioned to my parents that there's this movie called The Ring, that's not really heavy in bad language. It doesn't have blood or gore in it. It's just a good scary movie. And I think my parents, in my head, I was very able to differentiate the difference between suspense and horror, whereas my parents did not understand that I had that difference in my head. So we rented The Ring and we watched it, and oh my gosh, dude, just terrified the living hell out of me.
Oh no.
Just that though, it's just a good solid horror movie, but the whole thing is that there's this tape, right? And if you watch the tape, this girl calls you and just says 7 days, and it just follows somebody 7 days before they die.
Oh,
and
shit.
But this tape, this black and white VHS tape that if you watch you die, just the creepiest fucking footage in it, dude. There would be just an old woman standing lopsided in the mirror, and you couldn't see her, but you could only see her reflection in this really old-timey oval mirror on the wall, and she's just brushing her hair, but there's just this ringing in the background, and then it cuts to a fly just flying, just weird stuff.
Weird
dude.
Stuff that's not actually weird, but if you make it
but
look
weird,
together, it looks really weird.
It was fucking terrifying.
Because none of those things are weird. You can make it look super beautiful.
Exactly.
Too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But that was one that really did it for me when I was younger.
Yeah, I'm not super into the whole horror movie thing. Mm-hmm. I don't really like to be afraid if I can help it. So I try to stay away from those. I do think that some of the scariest scary stories come from like the Far East, like Asia.
Yes. Well, that's where The Ring came from too. The Ring
Yeah.
actually started off as a anime comic, and then it was made to a Japanese movie. And then there was the American rendition of the Japanese movie.
Something about Asian culture and community.
They're good with monsters.
Those guys, well, they're good with their spiritual world.
Yes.
Like their spiritual world, the afterlife for them, it's usually very shadowy, very black and whitey. And when they depict the stories, it goes kind of slow. There's always, I don't know, it's very long-haired, shadowy figures, usually children. Children fuck with you a lot in Asian horror stories.
That's true.
I don't know, and it could just be because I'm Western. I'm born and raised in Western culture. That maybe, our ghosts are usually adults,
right?
That come back and haunt you. It's pretty rare that you get a child to come back and try to murder you, right?
Yes.
So maybe it's just little nuances like that make it so creepy to me.
Yeah, well, they definitely have some like creepy monsters, like too, like legends, and stuff like that. Also, I mean, and that's kind of, and I can't think of any off the top of my head, but it's like what they do is what really differs, right? So like any like
it's always very detailed.
Yes,
everyone.
exactly.
It's like our superheroes. How they all have different superpowers and they all save the day, but differently.
Exactly.
Their horror characters all murder you and ruin your life, but they do it differently.
Yes. Yes, 100%. And that's what's creepy about it, like just as you said, the details. So like perfect example is like a very recent one in westernized culture, Slender Man, right?
I was literally just thinking in my head, Slender Man. Talk about subconscious communication.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Yes.
But Slender Man is very vague for the most part. It's detailed in how he looks. It's
he's a tall, slender shadow, right?
Well, right. And the whole thing is like, but
creepy
he takes
as hell,
children,
though.
right?
Creepy
takes
as
children.
hell.
But we don't know what he does with the children. Whereas if the Japanese or any Asian culture had written that piece of mythos,
you would know exactly.
They'd be like, the Slender Man takes children. Then once they get back to his house on the hill made of, wood, like it just
super
it
detailed, super
crazy
detailed
like that. So you have enough to imagine. I think that's a lot of Native American ones are like that too.
Native American, and what they do too is they tie it to nature a lot of the time.
Yes.
They
almost
tie
like you
it
can relate to it more because of that.
Yeah, either some kind of ritual you have to do to invoke or summon this creature or being, or an object that comes from nature or is very, very old.
Yeah.
And that object summons or holds this thing. It's very supernatural, but they don't use ghosts. They use like demons.
Well, and it's funny when you hear some of these stories, you can listen to them and understand that it's a story. But if you ever find yourself in the situation that, maybe the same situation told in one of these stories of when this monster shows up, you can't help but in the back of your head to be cautious. It's like a defense mechanism. It's like, well, I know that maybe there's a 0.0000001% possibility that this thing's going to show up. There's still the possibility. Right?
Well, and they're always like just not far-fetched enough that it's kind of possible.
I remember I had this Native American friend back when I was in high school who was telling me about this monster within their like at least like her tribe's like mythos, right? And she was talking about this man that would approach if you were like alone on the road or something, or like in the desert. There would be this man that would approach you whistling, and as he was walking towards you, it would sound like horse hooves hitting the ground, right? And he would come approach you, and he'd be wearing like a suit and everything like that, and he'd be whistling, and then he would come and he would like offer you something, and I can't remember all of the details, but I remember her telling me something like, if you look down and you see that his feet are actually hooves, and then look back up at him, you'll see the monster that is him, and you won't see the man anymore. And of course you hear this, it's a freaky story, but you also know it's a story. Well,
it kind of creeped me out.
Then there was a point where I used to like driving the winding roads up the Superstition mountain that we have in the valley, right?
Uh-huh.
And I was doing that late at night with a friend, and we were just driving around talking and doing this drive. And at one point, we just got, we're up at a place where you can see a lot of stars and everything. So we just pulled over the car, parked, and was just like laying on my car talking, looking at the sky. But we were alone in the desert on a vacant road, and you can't help but to like start thinking about this
You're like,
story.
if I hear whistling, I'm
that
fucking
your friend
out,
tells
homie.
you.
I'm out.
Yes. and it's one of those things, your mind starts to play tricks on you. All of a sudden, I would just be sitting there. We'd have like silent moments where we're just looking up, and all of a sudden you'd hear like, and you'd be like, what the fuck was that? Are those fucking hooves? Like what's going on? Like, so it's, but I mean, kind of looping back around to the superstition thing. I think that's how it happens. You have one person that just tells a story really well.
Well, and again, that would be superstition because it's a supernatural thing. It's a man, horse, monster, demon, right? At the end of the day, it comes down to demon. It's there to hurt you.
Right.
Right? So, yeah.
It's weird, dude.
Creepy shit. Weird.
Yeah. I mean, and don't fucking think that if I'm ever camping and I stroll along like to piss late at night in the forest, you damn right. If I look there in my mind, I'll probably be like, oh, I hope Slender Man's not back there.
Bro, if you're alone late at night in the middle of the desert camping, you have a lot more tangible things to be worried about than Slender Man.
I know, that's what's...
Stepping on a scorpion will fuck you up a lot worse than Slender Man will.
Well, Slender Man's in the forest, but yes, hopefully I don't see Hoof Man either from that story.
It's so funny.
Some weird ones out there, dude.
It's a very privileged thing to be worried about, isn't it?
I guess
supernatural
it is,
stuff.
isn't it?
That's for when you're no longer hungry, you're no longer tired, you have a ride to work, all your other shit's in line. So you're like, okay, I'm supernaturally afraid now.
We as people have to create drama for ourselves, man. If we don't have it, we'll create it.
I'm just saying, I don't know if there's a lot of ghost stories in like Africa, in Tunisia.
No, yeah. I bet there's
people where places where people go hungry. I don't think they have as much ghost stories.
No, I think they absolutely do have them, and I'll tell you why. Because, and this is something I've read and have heard multiple times, the whole reason why ghost stories exist in the first place was always to, one, either teach a lesson, or B, to get your children not to do something, right?
Yes, to make them afraid of doing something.
So if you didn't want your kids...
Don't talk to strangers.
Yeah, don't talk to strangers if they're going to do this. Or, like, don't hate your brother, otherwise, the sad man, the West is going to come and, make you sad the rest of your life. Whatever it is, right? But, so I would argue that even though there are a lot of countries in Africa that have, more tangible issues to worry about, still got to keep your kids in line.
Still got to keep them chillin' in line.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is a good place to end today's podcast, but it has been a fun podcast.
Yeah, that was a good time. I enjoyed it.
If you made it to the end of this podcast, leave a comment below in the... I was going to say in the description, but just leave a comment on the video.
Don't write in our description. We do that.
Say,
right in the comment section.
And put a hashtag superstition if you made it to the end.
Yeah. Let us know.
Just let us
know. Who makes it all the way?
Who makes it all the way?
It's only 53 minutes.
Only 53 minutes, guys.
How did he know? It's supernatural. That's a Twilight Zone.
And remember, guys, we do have a Patreon. You can donate to www.patreon.com/heartedlymillennial. And remember all the social media platforms. And any final thoughts, Matthew?
The X-Files is an amazing show. And the music's creepy as hell.
Creepy as hell, ladies and gentlemen.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.